Greetings shippers, welcome back. It's time for another episode of Surprise Ships, Shipoween edition. That's right, we're doing a Halloween thing. Sorta, kinda. Dressing up. Now for today's surprise ship, we're gonna head on over to a horror fandom. Now there are some who are surprised that there are active shipping fan bases within horror fandoms, as some feel that they might be antithetical. However, that is not the case. From films, to novels, to creepypastas, there is tons of fandom and shipping activity going on in the horror genre. Indeed, we have already talked about a horror ship on this channel, one that started off as a crack ship and remains so for some, but also has begun to garner a more serious shipping fanbase, or had at the time of that recording. This of course was the pairing of Pennydook, Pennywise, and the Babadook. Check it out if you're interested in more horror ships. However, it can still be surprising which outings this ends up occurring in, as is the case with today's entry, as it is not even a horror franchise that often comes to people's minds right away when you mention the big ones. Even though this franchise at the time of this recording has 10 films. 10. We're talking about Hellraiser. As always, before we dive into exploring any of the pairing aspects or any of the pairings when it comes to these, we'll issue a brief spoiler warning, in case you want to go watch the material and then come back and see what we're talking about. Also, I must issue a gore warning for the squeamish. These films are quite bloody, and do have some rather graphic character designs, so if that kind of stuff squicks you out, this may be a video to skip. Hellraiser the film was released in 1987, written and directed by the author of the novella upon which it was based, that being Clive Barker, who had written the novella The Hellbound Heart. After having several book-to-film adaptations not work out the way he wanted a chance to do it right, so he decided to direct this one himself. The result was the cult classic Hellraiser. The first film deals with Larry and Julia Cotton moving into a home that once belonged to Larry's brother Frank. The two are visited quite often by Larry's daughter Kirsty. It is clear from the outset that Julia and Larry do not have the happiest of marriages, and indeed that Julia was once having an affair with Frank. During the course of exploration of the home, it is revealed that all is not as it seems, and that Frank, who was thought to just be a lost wandering soul, had actually stumbled upon a Cenobite puzzle box and opened it, and fallen into another realm. Through some gory circumstances, he manages to claw his way back into the human world, and enlists Julia's help to bring him the bodies that he needs to fully manifest. A process that is discovered by Kirsty. Seeing as how both novella and film were written by the same person, they are very, very close, with some minor tweaks made for the screen. Mileage still varies on whether or not this film is good or not. One thing is for certain, wherever you fall, it is definitely memorable. And its villain, the Cenobites, specifically their leader Pinhead, have definitely risen to be one of the memorable horror movie icons. So what exactly is Hellraiser about? Well, loosely put, Hellraiser, the entire series, centers around a puzzle box that allows the solver, the user, to enter into a hell realm. This hell realm is an intriguing BDSM-styled, yet also quasi-satanic place. The people who enter it normally are not the best of people, for there's a certain kind of person drawn to attempting to solve this puzzle box. Think of a vibe similar to another horror franchise, that being Silent Hill. But instead of going to another realm and finding out all kinds of horrifying truths about oneself, this is something different. This is going into a hell realm and being trapped there forever, though perhaps liking that. The book actually works through a lot more BDSM themes than the film does, because of censorship and how much they could get away with, although you can see vestiges of it, especially in the Cenobites' costumes. However, this is important, as there is both a repulsion and a tugging to this realm that is experienced by the characters that go there. And this feeds directly into the shipping pairing. So who exactly is shipped within this universe? Well, there are actually a couple of ships, but the most prominent is that between the first film's protagonist Kirsty and the film's villain Pinhead, in a ship that goes by the name of Pinsty, for those in the know. Now, Kirsty and Pinhead's relationship actually carries on across a couple of the films, most notably the first, the second, and the sixth. And the comics give even more fodder for those fans who continued on to the shift in medium to explore them. Spoilers for those who do not want to hear anything about the comics, but these grace us with a Cenobite Kirsty, indeed, a Pinhead Kirsty. Across the years, you see an evolution of these two's relationship and a kind of understanding, as well as Kirsty using the realm to her own advantage, and if not exactly coming to like it, then coming to be familiar with what it is, and able to navigate it at least. In the first film, Kirsty comes into possession of the puzzle box very much by accident, and solves it accidentally as well, making her different from most of the people who end up entering this realm. As a result, her relationship with the Cenobites is different. While there's the usual fear, there is also interest, not only from her, but from the Cenobite leader in particular. This continues on as you learn more about both her backstory and his. For some, this has ended up culminating in a ship. So what exactly does this look like? Well, as you can imagine, there is a fair bit of smut. Just some complete PWP smut fics. Most of these fics work through and incorporate the BDSM element, as that is very much present within the source materials. However, there are also some works that head in a more introspective direction, that take a look at the inner sadness that inhabits most characters who end up stuck inside this realm. Others focus instead on this understanding and connection across realms, and how they have an unshakable bond, even if it was forged by accident. Even if it is not a pleasant place, there's something about being touched by the otherworldly, being aware that there are other realms that exist, that forever haunts one. Despite this, there are some who go in for a more fluffy element, or even a more hopeful or romantic tone, wherein they explore the human sides of both characters, in the rarer but still shipped pairing of Kirsty and Elliot, Pinhead in his human form. There is also a healthy crack contingent, as for some, horror movie pairings are in themselves inherently cracky. The fics also tend to feature a fair bit of gore, as again is the case with the source material. Now, there are some who steer clear, some who've never thought of the materials in exactly that light, as it's not exactly presented that way in any of the source materials. Even though there is that intrigue and interest, it's not exactly read by many as that type of interest, more of a curiosity. There are also those, and this is a more recent concern, who feel that it is not a good representation of BDSM, and that it could be considered problematic as it is being equated with a hell realm, as they feel that the films are implying that kink leads to evil, or deviance, and just a general degradation of one's overall state, and that it is something to be feared, and that it is a corrupting force within people's lives. However, others argue that it is not meant to be a direct correlation, and instead there are only thematic elements being employed, a representation of being drawn to the taboo rather than an actual exploration of the kink culture itself. Indeed, noting that many of the fics work through the kink culture element better than the source material does. As first and foremost, these are horror films, and some feel that they are not really attempting to say anything of much greater depth than that, and that these additional elements are fun things that one can examine more on their own time, but are not meant to detract from or distract one from the films as a whole. And there are those who contest that it is actually good representation, with some going so far as to hold it up as a better alternative to other works that explore the same subject, such as 50 Shades of Grey. As for some, this film is not only a horror classic, but also a BDSM classic, and they accept it for what it is. As for some, this was a gateway into BDSM, and some feel that the subtle coding within the film is quite accurate, though again, mileage very much varies. Though again, that is not the source material's main intent. It is using those themes to illustrate the push and pull that people have to solving this puzzle. Some also feel uncomfortable when witnessing the interactions between Kirsty and Pinhead, particularly within the first film, and feel that there is an element of hostility there. However, for those who are concerned about that, the relationship does change and evolve as the films go on. And by 6, it is almost close to amicable, if that's how what happens in 6 could be described. They do definitely appear more equal, although we are dealing with a much darker, tainted Kirsty. And there are of course those who will always be uncomfortable with this ship because of the tone of its origin. There are certain things that linger within certain shippers that are hard to shake, depending upon one's personal experiences and subject positioning. The two do share some particularly noteworthy moments for shippers in the second film. For the first and second Hellraiser film do play very well off of each other. From 3 onward is where things get interesting. There are also those who, again, this is a more recent concern, are concerned about the age gap, as Kirsty, when these films begin, has just left teenagedom. However, others argue if you're willing to entertain this pairing, that really is the least of the concerns that one would have when entering upon it. The pairing of human and monster and entering other hell realms and just everything else that is being worked through really seem to be something that one should be more concerned about in the eyes of those who are looking for things to critique. Though for many who are concerned by this element, it is a visceral, unplanned reaction. reaction, and some did not always take the time to examine relationships within their context. However, regardless of examination, one does not have to care for a ship. Though of course, as always, if this sounds like something that is not your cup of tea, then stay away. Aside from the Kirsty Pinhead pairing, Pinhead has found himself paired with other characters within the series. As aside from Kirsty, Pinhead really was the breakout character of this series, portrayed by the same actor for the majority of the outings. This being Doug Bradley, who portrayed the character for the first 8 outings, as well as his human counterpart Captain Elliot Spencer for 2 films, Hellraisers 2 and 3. Indeed, when his role was recast, he was quite saddened by that, and stated that he would have happily gone on playing the character had they let him. So what exactly is the appeal of Pinhead? This is often a question that is tossed around when anybody expresses an interest in a villainous character. Well, for some, it is the sense of taboo. For others, it is being drawn to the confidence and just the otherworldliness of it. It is very much a dark fantasy, not something that is meant to be achievable in one's own life, but an outlet, a safe space to explore some more taboo and perhaps naughty ideas. As for many people, fandom can be a place to explore these fantasy elements in a way that does not reflect upon their everyday lives. Though for some it might. There are another sect of fans who also enjoy exploring the perhaps hidden depths of the character, the more emotive aspects, or the more human parts. There are also those who do not care to examine it over much, and argue that if one feels an affinity for Pinhead, it really doesn't have to translate to meaning anything deeper than that, being drawn to the character in the specific series. Just like anything, if one is fascinated by Pinhead or interested in that character, it doesn't mean that they'll feel the same affinity for other similar characters. There are some who are drawn to what they view as the inherent kinkiness present within the character, and the overall aesthetic, which, while not pleasing to some, is intriguing to others. Or, as the characters say,
demons to some, angels to others.
When it comes to horror movie ships, they can be quite polarizing. People tend to have a love 'em or hate 'em reaction to them, especially because they involve such dark characters. Not everybody is comfortable exploring those narrative aspects, and that is absolutely fine, just as it is fine to dive in and revel in them. At the end of the day, this is a fairly small fandom, both in terms of shipping, fics, and art, and those who remember the film. Now, it is well recognized amongst horror aficionados, but again, it is one of those films where it can take people a while to think about it, if they ever do. When I stated that I was doing a multi-film series as one of the surprise ships in an upcoming video, only one person guessed what it was. While Hellraiser may seem gimmicky and kitschy, it does also have the ability to be deep and entertaining as well. There's something there for those who like horror that explore the psyche, as well as those who like gore and the shock factor, and a little bit of that fun factor, although there definitely is a bit of a steady decline as the sequels get made. But that tends to be the case with most long-running horror franchises. If you're going to watch one, I would definitely recommend the first one. It is a classic, and whether or not you feel that it is overrated or underrated has yet to be seen. It's up to you. Bonus points, it has a performance by Andrew Robinson, Brie Garrick, so if you're interested in that, it's got that in there for you. A lot of the practical effects also hold up very well. Some of the skin effects, not so much, but some of the others, especially the transformation and building of bodies, very good. If you end up being interested, it is a fairly large universe. It even has its own comic series. So, now you may have a film and a ship to check out. Let me know, are you a fan of Hellraiser or the Hellraiser series? If you were you aware of this pairing? Is it one that you ship, or do you have another Hellraiser pairing? Were you surprised? What's your favorite horror pairing in general, if you have one? Or are you not a horror genre fan? Let me know all of that down below. Also, I hope you appreciate the bootleg Halloween costume that's happening right now. Stereotypical 80s chick. Not all costumes have to be cosplay value. It's okay to be chill. I actually kind of like it. I kind of wish I could just walk around like this every day. Stereotypical 80s. They didn't even walk around like this every day in the 80s. One last question before I let you go. What's your Halloween costume going to be for this year? Let me know down below, and let me know what other Shipoween things you want us to get to for this month's Shipoween. I'm very much looking forward to covering all kinds of horror and scary themed ships for this month. If you haven't already, please do subscribe and hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Also, if you haven't already, follow on social media. There you can keep up on what's coming up next, or just come over and chit chat about fandom. It's a good time, I swear. There are, of course, as always, many more videos coming soon. And until next time, let's get to that outro. Bye-bye. This has been Shipper's Guide to the Galaxy. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and special thanks to all of my patrons, names on the side. There are, as always, many more videos coming soon, and of course, please do stay tuned, for there are as many ships out there as there are stars in the sky.